Well, folks, we got some great news for Nintendo Switch 2 today, including the fact that we could be seeing more and more games come to physical carts, including a much anticipated game that definitely will be on a physical cart from a third-party publisher, a major third-party publisher, which is great signs for future games from that company that will likely have many, many large IPs and large games coming to Switch 2 down the line. We have some updates as well on the projected sales for the Switch 2 going up, so that's some great news and just so much more. There's too many stories that I don't want to waste too much of your time before we get into them. So before we dive in, I want to remind you we are giving away 5 copies of Donkey Kong Bonanza. In order to enter and win, all you have to do is go down to the link in the pinned comment or the description. You must be 18 or older. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the news here. And the first piece we hear comes over from Go Nintendo, and it says physical game publisher pledges to work with Switch 2 devs and pubs for full on the game card releases. There we go. Some good news for physical releases on Switch 2. While the original Switch had code and box releases alongside regular game card options, the Switch 2 has introduced the Game Key Card physical release. This lets devs and pubs have a physical release and presence at retail, but the game itself still has to be downloaded. You insert the game key card into your Switch 2, and then the download starts up. In other words, it's a physical release that actually contains next to nothing on the game key card. Ever since game key cards were announced, the pushback was swift and loud from gamers. People have made it clear that they want to buy physical releases that give them the entire game on a game key card. And the intensity and distaste for game key cards has only grown since Switch 2 launched. That has paved the way for one physical game company that's looking to fight the good fight. Lost in Cult is a company that has released a number of physical Switch games, and they apparently want to do the same for Switch 2. Lost in Cult's Ryan Brown has taken to social media to show devs and pubs that Switch 2 owners want traditional game card releases, no downloads required. And it says, developers and publishers, talk to me. We'll give you full on-the-cart Switch 2 physical releases. It's what people want. It's what you want, and we can make it work for you. Hit me up. Brown doesn't give the details on how Lost Cult can facilitate this, but we at least know they've laid groundwork with Switch 1. The real question is if a physical release can happen on Switch 2 and somehow manage to fit the budget for all parties involved. If anything, you'd have to imagine that full game on-card releases could certainly come from Lost in Cult, but they most likely be small batch releases. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out from here. Will devs and pubs find a way to work with Lost Cult to make this happen, or do they think the game keycard pushback will blow over? Look, I'm just happy to see that there's companies out there willing to help push physical games on Switch 2, and we're not done with the physical game stuff because we actually have some good news about a major game that a lot of you guys are looking forward to in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. That's right. So we go over here to Nintendo. Says Sonic Racing CrossWorlds Switch 2 physical release appears to be a Switch 2 edition, which means there's a red Switch 1 game card with the Switch 2 upgrade on the game cart. It's actually a Switch 2 game cart that has the Switch 1 version on it. Basically just saying you can use it in Switch 1 and Switch 2 rather than a key card. So it is a full physical game. You can kind of see this when you zoom in here. That is the backing there of a Switch 2 edition. If you happen to own a Switch 2 edition like I do, hold on, let me grab my Tears of the Kingdom one. That's literally what the corner of it says. You can see it right here. So as we go back to the image here, you can see that like, hey, that is exactly like this Tears of the Kingdom one. So it does look like Sonic CrossWorlds will be a full physical game. And that's just good news. We hope that that means that more and more games are going to be going the physical route moving forward. Hopefully launch sales have come through and taught people that, hey, people really want physical, so we should be giving them physical. That being said, we have to talk about one bad story today, one negative story, and this deals with the fact that the Switch 2 screen is apparently low quality, and in some aspects, I can't say all, 120 FPS, right? I can't say all, but in some aspects is worse than the original Switch launch screen. There's some scientific data backing this, regardless of what you feel like when you play it. But let's get into the article. So WCCF Tech says Nintendo Switch 2 display is problematic in a number of ways and worse than its predecessors in terms of motion quality. So around 2 weeks after the system launched in most of the world, the tech experts at Digital Foundry shared a 2-hour-long review of the Nintendo Switch 2, going over every aspect of the system in great detail. Being the first Nintendo system to offer features that have become widely adopted in handheld devices since launch of the original Switch, great attention has been reserved for the system's display. And the verdict is not good, as the display proved to be problematic in a number of ways. As already highlighted earlier this month, HDR support is extremely disappointing. It just doesn't get bright enough. That's the problem. It's an edgelit LCD, which by the way, you can still do HDR with, but it's 420 nits. That's just not bright enough for proper HDR. Anyways, motion quality is possibly even more disappointing, as its blurring characteristics easily make the new system's panel worse than the original Switch's display. The difference in quality becomes even more evident when comparing the Nintendo Switch 2's display with the Switch OLED. It's not just HDR and motion quality that disappoint the Switch 2 display, but also variable refresh rate support. There's reason to believe, however, that variable refresh rate support could be improved in the future, as Digital Foundry highlighted how Welcome Tour reveals support for LFC, or low frame rate compensation, which should improve the experience when hitting frame rates outside of 40 to 120 Hz in the variable refresh rate window. Though its display disappoints, the Switch 2 is a clear upgrade over the predecessor. Now, I haven't noticed any of these motion quality issues, but there are people that have. And I actually was over on my Twitter today debating with a few people on this, because I like to get some context for all of this. So let's go ahead and open my little tweet that I did on this, because I was quoting John Linneman from Digital Foundry. Says this actually is measured it, and it's even worse than we suggested. It's one of the slowest modern LCDs ever seen. So if you go to here, you can see this is where it is at the 17.06 milliseconds, which is really low. That's bad. It's better than like the PSPs or whatever that was 30, but this is not good, right? That's very low. And he was responding here. And he was just showing an image showing the kind of a ghosting motion blur effect. And I said, all I have learned is that I can't see the motion blur personally. I game on a very high-end PC monitor too. Maybe it's my old eyes, but I think, that maybe that's not letting me see it anymore. I wonder if my younger self would have seen this. Either way, I hope Nintendo uses a better screen in a future revision. And this person here tried showing the ghosting for like, this is the Switch 2. You can kind of see the ghosting here. And then this is the Switch OLED. But my thing is, he took this as like a still photo with an iPhone. So I did the same thing. And this is the Switch 2 and this is the Switch 1. And you can see like it looks a little blurry up here, some slight ghosting effects, but this is on the Switch OLED. You can clearly see clear ghosting here. There's even a little ghosting and fraying on the edges over here. There's ghosting on that. You can go over here. You can see that this looks pretty fine. This looks pretty fine, although if you look closely, there is some ghosting and some edging issues here where you're seeing double if you zoom in. And over here, kind of the same thing. Both of these images look fairly clean to me. So in the end, I don't know that that's really a good way to do it. And when you got to record at 120 or 240 FPS and slow it down, I don't know. Like, to me, this isn't that big of a deal, but there are some people out there that do notice it. So I'm not going to dismiss this as a proper problem. It is an actual problem. So I'm not dismissing it. I hope that future screens do better. I'm thankful that it doesn't seem to bother me. But you know what did bother Nintendo? Well, how about the fact that somebody out in London put out a Metroid Prime 4 Beyond poster that said the game was out now? Well, we have an update to that story because Nintendo fixed it. So this was the original poster, and Nintendo has now taken it down and replaced it with this one and fixed that section. Maybe this is a sectioned off poster, so they didn't have to replace the whole thing. But anyways, Nintendo did come in and fix it. Again, we don't know when the release date is coming. There is no announced release date for it yet other than 2025. But we do actually have a release date for a game. And that game is the next game coming out after Donkey Kong Bonanza. That being Drag X Drive, or Dragon Drive as Nintendo calls it. Hit Switch, and it's going to be $20. It's going to be a digital-only release. And as you can see here, Drag X Drive, the 3-on-3 sports title revealed for Switch 2 a few months back, has a release date. According to the Nintendo Today app, this title will be coming on August 14th. And it's going to be $20. As a digital-only release, I don't feel like this is the only game they'll release in August. People did point out, by the way, that the Kirby DLC Switch 2 edition drops that month. But, man, if that's all they have for August, it is a new game, and it is some DLC. I was hoping for, like, a brand new physical release game, but we'll see. We could still have a direct coming. Anyways, slide both controllers forward to move in that direction. Slide only one controller to pivot. Shoot, raise one hand and flick your wrist. Use the half pipe to fly in the air, yada, yada. We've seen this game in action. I would like if they would put a free demo up for this, but given that it's a $20 game, I just got to say that I'm really happy with the price point. That's the thing that I'm most happy about is price points. Like, I was worried this might be like a $40 game and that's going to price a lot of people out. I think at 20, it shows that, hey, this is a game that has more going into it and more to look forward to than, say, Welcome Tour, but it's not like the same level as like a Donkey Kong Bonanza, right? So I'm kind of happy with that price point. Personally, since it's $20, I'll pick it up and give it a try. That being said, there's speculation around the Nintendo Direct, right? We know about the rumored stuff from beat 'em ups, and now Nintendo made a move that has people thinking, man, maybe a Direct really is coming soon. So Nintendo of America unpinned tweet leads to Direct speculation. So Japanese users have noticed that Nintendo of America, so it took Japanese users to notice this, has unpinned the Nintendo Switch 2 tweet of the official X account in the last few days. This has led to speculation that a Nintendo Direct is on the way, considering that June has traditionally been a month for a full Nintendo Direct in the last several years. However, upon checking other regional Nintendo accounts on X, it seems that Nintendo of America may have forgotten to pin up their tweet for Donkey Kong Bonanza, as the Japanese and European accounts have pinned up post-promoting that game. So, does it mean there's a Direct coming? I don't know. Obviously, they're going to be promoting Bonanza pretty hard, and the Direct rumors for July. So we have to get to July before we can take anything out of it. But people like to speculate on anything that happens, including the sales of Switch 2. So Switch 2 2025 sales forecast has bumped from 15 to 16 million units by DFC Intelligence. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is now the key driver of industry growth for 2025. DFC has increased its forecast for Switch 2 unit sales from 15 million to 16 million. This is just for this fiscal year. If manufacturing could meet demand, the Switch 2 could sell as many as 20 million. But DFC considers this unlikely, as Nintendo is expected to take a conservative approach to inventory, reflecting its historical conservative approach to new product forecasting. Nintendo is estimating 15 million Switch 2 units for the end of the fiscal year in March of 2026. When the original Switch launched in March of 2017, Nintendo initially projected 10 million units for the fiscal year, but ultimately sold 15 million units in that period. Based on that track record, the fact that Nintendo is forecasting 15 million units gives us confidence they'll be able to ramp up supply and navigate tariff changes. Also, it's just important to note that Nintendo said that they could produce way more than 15 million if they need to. So maybe you shouldn't quite give up on that 20 million if you pay attention to Nintendo's own words. But what are you going to do? Now, Donkey Kong Bonanza is coming out, and that's a very exciting venture for many of us. We're super stoked. But there is some nervousness that the game looks so big and so involving, and maybe it's made by the Mario team. And if it is, then maybe 3D Mario is further off than people expect. And that speculation is being driven by former Nintendo employees, not execs, Nintendo Life, employees, Kit and Krista. So here's what they had to say about the matter on one of their latest podcast episodes. So Kit says, okay, EPD Tokyo is making Bonanza. Fine. We know that. Then the next logical question to ask is, well, what does that mean for the next 3D Mario game? Now, they're speculating, by the way, that EPD Tokyo is making it. They don't know because this is the team that did that. And at Nintendo, they had two teams between 2D and 3D Mario games split. Either they've come up with some new arrangement where somebody else is involved in some other way or another, or the other implication is that we might just be waiting for a good long time before we get the next 3D Mario game, because that team is incredible. Nobody's disputing the quality. They are not fast. They are not prolific. They are not pumping out games. Krista then comes in and says, I don't think Nintendo would move fast enough to be able to handle that kind of change, just knowing what we know about how the company works and operates. And also, I don't think that they would want anything to jeopardize the importance of a 3D Mario game. So from my perspective, I would think that it is if it is confirmed that EPD Tokyo is working on Bonanza, then that does mean, unfortunately, that 3D Mario probably coming very late, assuming 4, 5, 6 years. Now, the interesting part is a lot of the assumption is that EPD Tokyo is the one making it. There is rumors and other thoughts out there that Nintendo actually formed a brand new EPD team that's now going to be the Donkey Kong team. Obviously, most of this stuff will get sorted out really as soon as we find out who's making the damn game. So the speculation is going to run rampant until we know. It is kind of weird that we're a couple weeks out and we still don't know who the hell, well, 3 weeks, I guess, at this point, who the hell has actually made Donkey Kong Bonanza besides Nintendo. Kind of wild. But, you know, we're going to find out. We're going to know. There's going to be dev interviews, probably an Ask Nintendo series and all that. But one game we do know, and we know who made it, Shinin Multimedia. We're talking about Fast Fusion. They're about to drop their free update. So Fast Fusion's free pure content update drops on June 26th. So we've known for a few weeks now that Fast Fusion was going to get a free content update, and today brings us a full breakdown of what will be included, along with an official release date. Remember, this is just a $15 Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive game. So Fast Fusion's first content update is set to arrive June 26th, and it's being dubbed the Pure Update. And here's what you can expect. So you're going to get 3 new tracks in the game, the Carbium Cup, including Alpine Trust, Sun Ahara, Plains and Zensho Habitat. And then a pure performance mode, which renders at 1440p dynamic resolution with no upscaling applied. So just direct 1440p. And then a new GPU particle system for the snowflake effect, which is going to be applied to the Alpine Trust track. There's going to be extra content, so 2 new jukebox entries, tweaks to make progression slightly easier, specifically a lower price for the third cup, and a bug fix to resolve a rare crash when switching rendering modes often. Several smaller fixes and corrections. Now, most people are going to switch their rendering modes super often, but a lot of people were just trying to test out the different rendering options in the game. And if you were changing them frequently, sometimes the game would crash. So really glad to see that that's all getting fixed up. I'm really glad for any sort of free content update, especially for a $15 game. So that's exciting. You know, we also had an update to Nintendo Music. They keep updating this super randomly. And the latest one, they added the soundtrack for Yoshi's Story. Yoshi's Story is a great soundtrack, so I'm just really happy to have that updated and added. No real big news there. Just Nintendo keeps adding more and more tracks. And you know what, folks? That's actually it for today's video. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rumpeljans. We should be live streaming later tonight. I got kind of a packed afternoon here between practices, and I got to run an errand with Eric and all this other stuff. But I want to thank you guys for being here, and I'll catch you guys later tonight on a live stream.